Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Veterans View. And today on the show we have Natalie. Natalie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
That's great. And Natalie is an Army veteran. And we as you know, we're interviewing veteran and veteran-owned businesses. And Natalie has her own boutique in her store. But before we talk about your boutique, Natalie, tell us something about your military service.
I served for 12 years on active duty. I was a communications sergeant. During that time, I deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan 3 times. So spent about 39 months overseas.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for your service, Natalie. Is it anything else? Your husband, I understand?
My husband is still active duty. He just redeployed back in November. He was with the SFAB, and now he will be moving over to Sand Hill to become a first sergeant in one of the basic training companies.
Okay, great. And you know, the good thing about veterans and veteran-owned businesses is Natalie have served her country in this nation and served it with honor, and her husband is still serving with honor. But not only that, Natalie is giving back to her community, not just by her boutique, but you also have some foster kids.
Yes, I
Would
do.
you tell us about that? Because that's one of the greatest things that we're being able to help our community and get some of those kids out of DHR and into a good home. So talk about that.
Growing up, I was a foster child, and I know that there was a great need for foster parents, especially here in the local area. Right now we have approximately 100 children in just Russell County alone, and that's where I'm licensed to foster. We have a great need for foster parents, so I feel that if you have the room in your heart and the room in your home, I feel that, you know, if you can do it and you have the capabilities, that you should bring an extra kid. They need people to love them and a safe place to go.
And that's true Christian love. Now, Natalie, where are you from originally?
I am originally from Washington State.
Washington State.
Yes.
So you from a Navy home, but you joined the Army.
Yes.
And that's good because all of our branches of the service are good. Now, Natalie, tell us about your business. Give us your business name.
My business is Agnes and Dora by Natalie M. And
And you phone number and your email address?
you can reach me at 360-951-9580. And my email is nataliemac0507@gmail.com.
Now, Natalie, tell us about some of the things that you sell out of your boutique.
Our boutique is mainly for women and for children. The children line is actually pretty small, but we sell leggings and tunics, dresses for children. I also sell things like the kimono that we have right here, the jacket that I have on, the dress I have on. Leggings are a big seller for our company, and basically anything that women wear, we sell.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Natalie, because, you know, being a veteran, and I'm a veteran, and I work with homeless veterans and stuff like that. Do you ever have anything that you just give to like homeless people or anything?
I do. Actually, some of my clothing I have donated to the Village, which is actually a village for where foster parents and adoptive parents can go to get clothing for free. I believe they get 15 items per month, so I have donated some of my clothing to them. I've donated to the Red Cross during the disaster relief for the last tornadoes that we had.
Right.
I donated some clothing to that, and also to some women's shelters here locally.
Okay. Well, Natalie, tell me, how do you like our community here since you're from Washington when you compare it now? I know Washington, it rains quite a bit,
Yes.
but they don't get tornadoes. So tell us about how you like our area.
Well, I do like the area better. We have a lot more sunshine. We have a lot more warmer weather here. And the other thing too is when it rains here, it actually rains. It doesn't drizzle. Washington State drizzles, and so it's kind of dreary all day. Here we get it over in about 10 minutes. So
Okay.
I'm actually loving that.
You love that? Okay, but do you miss the apples? That's the other thing.
I do miss the apples.
You do miss the
I
apples?
do miss apples.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your business, what you do for DHR and stuff of that nature?
As far as the business, I just like to say we are all about making our customer happy. If you find that something doesn't fit, we are so happy to exchange, or we're a very customer-based company, and we like to make the customer happy, I guess, for that. And as far as DHR, I would say, like I said, if you have the room in your hearts and in your homes, I would highly recommend going and seeing the Russell County DHR and applying to be a foster parent, because we need you desperately.
Okay, Natalie, I want you to tell us about your transition. How was it? My transition when I retired from the military, it was like a total culture shock to me to come into the civilian world from working with military disciplined people to coming out. And not to say that the civilian world is not disciplined, but they don't have the discipline that we have in the military. So how was your transition?
My transition was actually pretty rough. I had spent 12 years active duty, and when I got out, I found myself feeling pretty lost. I had my son about 3-4 months after I got out formally, and so I became a stay-at-home mom. And after my second son was born, I found myself wanting to get back into the work world, but it had been a couple years, and I knew that was hard. I'm working on my degree. My husband and I decided we both wanted somebody to be home to see the first, since he was away with the military, and we wanted somebody to be home to see all the first and to be active in the kids' lives, be there every day. And so I found that going with Agnes and Dora allowed me the freedom to be with my children and to be home, but it also helped us support the family with a second income. So that helped me with the transition a lot.
Okay.
So.
Well, like I said, I when I retired, my transition was like a culture shock.
Yes.
But being that you had deployed twice, 3 times rather, to Afghanistan and Iraq, and you were so used to the military, so once you retired and then your husband deployed, I mean, that had to be a shock also, staying behind with the kids and being by yourself.
Yes, it was. My husband actually went through a 15-month deployment with me, leaving for 15 months. At the time, we didn't have any kids, so it was a little different. Some days were easier, some days were harder, because there was no way for me to go get a break, and the stress was a lot more, and it was a huge culture shock where I'm used to be the one leaving, so now I'm the one staying home, worried about who's going overseas, what's happening, why I'm not getting a phone call today. It was a very different world.
And like I say, I know it was, and I can identify, because I was in the Navy. So when we deploy, we're on a ship at sea, and nobody can know where we are. And to leave your family behind, and you're wondering what's going on, how's everything. So we want to again thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for your service to the community. And we wish you all the best of luck. And as I say, we will check on you within the next 6 to several months and see how everything is going.
I will be here.
And again, veterans, remember to support those businesses which support you, those veteran-owned businesses like Natalie's. Thank you, Natalie, for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
They are the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. But what does it take to strengthen our service members? What does it take to let them know that we stand behind them, wherever they are? What does it take to bridge the distance and keep them connected to family, home, and country? And what does it take to prepare them for their future when their service to the nation is complete? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Share a message today at force.uso.org.
And welcome to another episode of Veterans View here in beautiful downtown Phoenix City, Alabama, which is the capital of the county of Russell County, Alabama. And we are interviewing today CJ Sherry Farms. Cherami Farms, which is, tell us what your farm does, just a little brief.
We are a veteran-ran nonprofit that works with female at-risk youth. ages 10 to 15. And the whole premise of the program is we mentor these young ladies through the education and dedication of horses.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to get deeper into that, but I just wanted to get that out. But first, I want you to tell me about your military service and your transition from military to civilian, and how was it?
So initially, I started in the Army Reserves over in Opelika, Alabama.
Opelika, okay.
Yes, sir. Had a wonderful unit there, did a little AGR. And then just, found myself wondering and, just wanting to be more and do more with the military. I come from a military family. And so I went active duty. It was the whole, I'm going to go reserves and go to college. Never happened.
Right.
So I found myself going active duty. I obtained several MOSs just between transition and reserves to active duty. I went from diesel mechanic and then eventually went into paralegal studies when I became ill.
Okay.
Got out. I was stationed in the last duty station at Fort Eustis.
Fort Eustis, Virginia.
Yes,
okay.
sir. And 155th Transportation Unit, an amazing unit.
Okay.
Got out, decided to be a mother. My husband at the time was in the Coast Guard.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the family care plan didn't work.
Okay.
Miss it every day, but I'm blessed to be a mother.
Okay, great. Now, and I want to clarify something to make sure that our civilians understand. MOS is your military specialized training, because in the Navy we call it NEC, Navy Enlisted Classification Code, which is what your specialty is, what you went to school
Yes,
for.
sir.
So I'm glad you broke it down, but I just wanted to say that. Now, can you tell me and our audience your transition from being military to civilian? Like in my case, for me, it was a culture shock because I did 21 years.
It was definitely, because not only did I go from being a single woman in the military, I went to being now civilian, but I was a dependent of someone else in the military, in the Coast Guard. And so throughout the years that I was married to my daughter's father, I still had that military lifestyle. We were still surrounded by other military. I was able to keep that culture. And when we divorced and I moved back, we lived in Florida at the time, and I moved back home to Russell County, Fort Benning being right here, I was still able to
keep the camaraderie.
Exactly,
Okay.
and choose. I always chose and drew in military, friendships. And so once, really, when I started this program, dealing a lot more with civilians, that's when the culture shock came in.
Okay.
That's when I was like, wait a minute, there is a true difference between military and civilian, even within the same town, that huge difference.
Right.
And it was difficult. It was really difficult to deal with, because at the time I was also going to college, and you're throwing in another dynamic, another group of people. So civilians in college, younger, I was older, I was 32. And so it was.
Well, let me ask you this. When you started college, were you looked to as the leader of the class?
Yes. Not only because of my age, because a lot of them I was close enough to be their mother. But all that military discipline, I was the one that was taking the notes. I was the one asking the questions rather than just sitting and not paying attention. Your first freshman year, I was extremely diligent, and oftentimes confused to be the professor's assistant.
Right.
And so yes, often all throughout the 8 years I went to college, it was very similar to that. Even online, I noticed.
Right.
With the civilians I was doing online courses with,
Right.
and the interaction, being more of that, ask questions and inquisitiveness and
Right.
and continuing your education and yearning. I do notice that.
Okay, and now, what are you doing now other than this, before we get to talking about your veteran-owned operation? What are you doing now?
Now it's advocacy. It's being a mother. I have a teenage daughter, and that takes up a lot of your time as well. Trying to be as involved in the community as possible outside the program.
Right.
But the program evolved because it's a passion.
Right.
So even when I'm not involved with my program, it's continuing outreach.
Right. And this should be good for your daughter to see the outreach that you're doing with at-risk girls.
Yes, sir.
Because, in school today, schools are getting back to telling kids to do community service. Whereas for a moment they had got away from it.
Yeah.
Now community service is coming back. So this should be a great for your daughter experience learning. But
she's the reason I started the program.
okay.
Honestly, 8 years ago, when I moved back here and I started college and trying to get her into a lot of programs, I was a single mother, I was low income, so trying to do what I could to
Right.
be a single mother and survive. I noticed there wasn't a lot of opportunities out. And so that's essentially where the program came from, was my daughter. Because reaching out and trying to get her into this program or this program, either I didn't have the money or they just didn't have the availability. And so I was like, God's pushing me, see a need, fill a need. And that's essentially where it came from, is evolving with having the struggles of my daughter, getting her into a program.
Now, and I'm glad you said that, which leads me into my next question is, tell us about that area where God pushed you into to start your farm. But before you do that, I want our viewers to look at her hat. And if you don't mind, could you just take it off for a moment
hat hair.
and turn it around so they can see what you have there? And you have, is that United States Army?
Yes, sir.
And what's the other insignia there?
Freedom isn't free.
And then you have
Army.
Okay. Okay.
Got to represent.
And that's great. Now tell us about Sherry's Farms.
Sheremy Farms.
Sheremy Farms.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It's okay. Sheremy, by the way, is French for good friend.
Okay.
But that's not why we named it. We named it after a World War II pigeon that rescued over half a battalion that was being shot upon by friendly fire. And so researching, and my daughter found the name, researching for a good name, I was like, well, we're doing horses and military. I wanted it to still be affiliated with military. I was like, well, find a military horse name. And she goes, Mom, I found Sheremy. And I said, that is cool. She goes, it's a pigeon. And I went, a pigeon? But once I read up this story about Sheremy and how, she traveled, it's a homing pigeon, and she traveled to save the lives of this, 206 soldiers, don't quote me, out of a whole battalion that was being killed by our own people, it registered with me. Because the premise of the program is the girls that we're working with, and not only the girls, but the families we're working with, are being shot by friendly fire.
Right.
Not having the opportunities that they need to thrive and be successful. Therefore, how can they not necessarily leave Russell County, but how can they recontribute back into Russell County if they're not given these opportunities?
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
and so
but
I knew that had to be the name.
And not only come back to Russell County, but how can we get them into school, into college?
Exactly.
And that's a big reason why we're doing these veteran-owned businesses interviews, because we want everybody to see how you are giving back to the community in which you live.
Yeah.
So tell us something about the courses that you offer at your facility.
So it's a three-tiered program is what we are currently working on. The first tier right now is our Horsemanship Program. It's 12 weeks, 1 day a week. Not only is it about riding horses, but it has an equine therapeutic aspect to it. So we're showing them dedication. We're reflecting a lot of the scenarios with horses towards bullying, anything that they would deal with in life, difficulties, and how working with horses can reflect back into that and how you overcome. And then they return we have basic, intermediate, and advanced. So level 1, level 2, and level 3, they're tiered very much like the military. So you're going to have your private, and I'll speak in Army terms.
Right.
Then you'll have your specialist, which would be our level 2. And then moving on to level 3 would be closer to like a platoon sergeant.
Okay.
Right? So now level 3 has in their team, they're leading the lower levels, right? And it's a beautiful thing because we're creating through this that I've developed over 8 years, we're creating leaders.
Okay.
Not just with horses. They think they're just leading the younger girls because they know more about horses, but what I'm noticing is they're leaders in the community now. You know, they started a year ago as someone fresh and scared, and now a year later at level 3 and as a junior leader, it's a beautiful thing because I've noticed them take charge, not only in the with the horses, but outside in the community. Their grades are becoming better because they have more confidence in themselves and that they can register education, right? And then also the families have noticed a huge difference. You know, they're becoming more involved with their family and their lives, and they're, you know, making decisions and assisting with that.
Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned at-risk girls. Is this are all the girls coming out of a family setting, or are some coming out of DHR, some coming out of just a church referring, community referral? How are you receiving your girls?
So when I use the term at risk, unfortunately these days at risk, you know, a lot of people in the community seem to think it's kids that are in jail.
Right.
No, that's no longer at risk.
Okay.
They have gone past that line.
Okay.
What I mean by at risk is more so underserved.
Okay.
Single parent home, poverty,
Great.
military, so an absent parent due to their obligation to the service.
Okay.
All these here are going to give them, unfortunately, they are going to have a disadvantage than those that have two parents,
Okay.
those that have money to participate in several programs, those that have a parent that's not at war with the potential of, you know, losing their lives
Right.
and dealing with that daily.
Okay.
And so that is at risk. That's truthfully in what we do, what we deem as at risk.
Okay.
Underserved.
Okay, great. And that's sort of similar to like a PTSD program.
Correct.
So that's great. And so my next question is, once they graduate, do you continue to track them and
Yes.
see how they're doing?
Yes. So oftentimes the multi-tiered part of the program, so just the horsemanship alone, and we have several other programs we're developing right now, but they keep coming back, and I'm like, okay. So the multi-tiered program developed because they didn't want to leave, and I didn't want them to leave.
Okay.
As long as, and we're a free program, so we don't charge 1 penny to the families.
Okay.
But, you know, the thing is if they want to come back, and if I can continue to assist them, then please, by all means, right? And we have some young ladies, you know, now they come back as junior leaders. They're no longer technically in the program, but they still volunteer their time with the newer girls, right? And we also have a scholarship fund where $1 that they volunteer, whether it's at our barn or other events throughout the community, go towards, so 1 hour equates to $1 towards college.
Okay.
And so that's a huge incentive for them. More so, I think, the parents as well, right? So we've got some young ladies within 2 years that have volunteered over 800 hours, and that's $800 towards college.
So do you operate off of sponsorship or donations?
So we do offer sponsorships, whether you want to sponsor a young lady, just 12 weeks. Each young lady, the cost can equate to about $250 to $300 for the 12-week program.
That's not expensive at all.
No, but that's just the cost. That's because we have 27 girls in the program. So you multiply 27 times 250. That's the overall cost to run the program. So we offer sponsorships of the horses or the young ladies if you want to sponsor. But for the most part, we're self-funded. We do have some donations that come in, but we are self-funded. As of right now, we would love the opportunity to have more income to come in so we can start having paid volunteers. I know that's an oxymoron,
right?
But our volunteers donate a lot of their time to keep the program running, and the adult volunteers. So we would love the opportunity to become larger. We are seeing a need. We have 100 girls apply every 12 weeks.
Okay.
We only have slots for 6.
So give us the name of your farm again.
Cherami Farms.
And give us your phone number.
334-520-9347.
And your email address.
CheramiFarms@gmail.com.
And do you have a Facebook where people can see?
Oh, yes.
Okay, then would you give us that as well?
Cherami Farms, CHERAMI, like Cher and Amy, Farms, Horsemanship Program.
And this will be running across the bottom of the stream, but we thank you so much. And is there anything else that you would like us to know? Because I know running a veterans organization such as this that's trying to give back to the community, when we have female veterans who are going through some issues as far as PTSD, MST, military sexual trauma, and they need something like this where they can, not maybe some don't want a working dog, but they can rub a horse or do something like that. Are they welcome to apply to your program?
Yes, we are actually in the works of building a veteran-only program where it's 3 days. They will come, stay, ride horses, go fishing, go out in the community, do a lot of what Columbus and the Chattahoochee Valley has to offer for 3 days.
Okay.
And so that is going to be separate from the horsemanship program. We will start to offer these 3-day excursions for veterans and their families.
That is great to know because, as you know, I am the senior mentor for Veterans Court, and we do a lot of things with our veterans while they're going through treatment program. And so we may be able to partner up with you as far as some of our veterans who would enjoy being around a horse or animal to pet. And
20 minutes is, and it not only does it benefit the horse, but of course, we have several veterans that are volunteers that will just come and groom, and we'll speak with them. But oftentimes, I just let them be with the horse, and that 20-30 minutes of just grooming and loving on the horse, I see the weight lift off their shoulders, and it's a beautiful thing, absolutely beautiful. And so they're always welcome to come and meet our horses and find some release in just the quiet and calm of being on the farm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming to our show and letting us know that we have this available to us in our community. And I invite all of our veterans to support a veteran-owned business. And I also invite our civilian community, our community at large, to check out Cherami's Farms. And if you have a daughter who, and this is, I don't want to say at risk, but a daughter who just want to be a part of something like this and learn how to ride horses, to check out Cherami's Farm. And the information is running across the bottom of the stream as we speak. Thanks again for coming to Veterans View, and we wish you luck, and we will see you on graduation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.